As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission, I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain, keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road, let's camera action, I'm ready to go.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio. Sitting in for Tom today is Jesse Turner.
All right, welcome New Haven, welcome 103.5 FM community. I'm excited today to be talking to Connecticut's AAUP Labor College presidents, and we have Eastern Connecticut State in the house. We have Western Connecticut State in the house. We have Southern Connecticut State in the house, and we have my very own Central Connecticut State in the house. So what I would like to begin with is just people to introduce themselves, maybe 30 seconds, no more than a minute. And maybe we can start with, I'm going to go down, I have a list of participants, and we're going to start with you, Louise Williams. So President Williams, can you start us off? Tell us who you are, maybe a little bit about your passion. Okay?
Hi, I'm Louise Williams. I am president of Central Connecticut State University, AAUP, which is our faculty union. I'm also a professor of history. So like everybody else here who's involved with the union, we are actually teachers ourselves. So I teach courses in history, I teach courses in international studies, I teach in the honors program. So we're representing faculty, but we are faculty ourselves.
Perfect, perfect. And then I'm going down my list over here. It's Nicole from, President Nicole from Eastern Connecticut State University. I think I have it right. Nicole, are you unmuted? All right, we'll go to Patty.
I'm Patty O'Neill. I'm president of Connecticut State University American Association of University Professors, which is the statewide organization. I've been president since January 2019. And the last 6 months have been quite challenging. I'm from Western. I am entering my 19th year at Western. I teach psychology. I've been involved with the union since my first year at Western. I almost lost my job because of the budget crisis. And AAUP was instrumental in solving that particular problem. So I started to become involved with the union. I think it's super important for us faculty members because it gives us, there's power when we're all together. I'll just stop there and let someone else go.
All right, no problem. We'll try Nicole again. Looks like you're unmuted now, Nicole. Could you tell us a little bit?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm a professor of political science. I've been teaching at Eastern for 25 years. I am the president of the faculty union for Eastern, and I teach classes in medium politics, political rhetoric, and race, class, and gender politics.
All right, perfect. And so we've done Patty, we've done Louise, and we've done Nicole. Ratua, can you help me out?
Okay, hi.
Name. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. My name is Ratua Lumban-Tobing, and I am the president of the Western Connecticut State University chapter of the CSEAUP. And I'm an economist, so I teach usually introduction to microeconomics, macroeconomics, and all kinds of economics classes. But my research is in sports economics, and that is closely related, or basically one of the main issues in sports economics is labor. And that's, I always believe in labor unions. in economics that's very important, but I think it's more than that for us in public higher ed. And in my research, of course, I look at a lot of the antagonistic relationship between management and labor. So I think this is what, as Patty said, the last few months have been really, really hard, and it's trying times for everybody, but definitely for those in public higher ed and for faculty, staff, and definitely our students.
So, and I'm trying to think now, we've got one more person. Our friend Zach from Southern Connecticut State University, the man that goes around with 2 giant cups of coffee all the place. All right, Stephen, you're up, sir.
Yes, Stephen Monroe Tomczak. I'm the president of the Southern Connecticut State University chapter of AUP. And I teach social welfare policy and community organization in the social work department. And I come to this work from a long background in social justice activism and a commitment to labor activism in particular. One of my research interests is social movements. The labor movement, of course, is a critical social movement working for social and economic justice in this society. And in social work also, we are expected to, as a professional field, practice. And I see my AAUP work in many respects as my practice work. When I'm engaged in this organizing work within the context of our faculty union, I'm engaged in community organizing in my community, which is, of course, my university. And so I take this very seriously, and then I always am showing up to testify at the legislature and engage in other actions to advance the interests of workers in the Connecticut State University system.
So we've got 2 kinds of things we're going to talk about today. We're going to cover a little bit of the COVID stuff and ask some questions about a question or 2 about that. But we also want to focus on what does it really mean to invest in our higher education system. So we'll get to that. But let me ask people about the sense, how have our unions been treated? How have our faculty been treated in opening up our universities again? Have they been treated fairly? Have their voices been valued, listened to? Have our ideas been heard? So why don't anybody could jump in on that. No one wants to take that one.
No, I'll start. So just to give you some background, the Board of Regents has been holding meetings with the presidents of all the higher ed unions in the system starting in March, which I thought was a great idea because it kept us all updated and on the same page. They listened to our concerns at that point. They did some problem solving before the problems became, huge. And I just really appreciated the fact that the system office was willing to do that. However, over the course of the summer, when the reopening plans were being unveiled, all of us presidents at these meetings expressed concern about specific issues. The lack of widespread testing, only a percentage of residential students are going to be tested randomly. The lack of widespread screening measures of any sort, the lack of widespread contact tracing, our working conditions are student learning conditions. And if those working conditions are not safe, excuse me, they're not going to be safe for our students. And I know you just wanted to talk a little bit about COVID, but to me, this crisis has revealed that there are real inequities in how our students are being treated by our system office compared to, for example, students at UConn and students at Yale. And I think it's unfair to our students. So to kind of summarize, I'd say initially things started out very well, but then our voices were, and our concerns were noted, but they're doing the bare minimum for our communities. And that doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. And I'm sure the chapter presidents all have thoughts on this.
All right. It's not only our, I'm not certain, but all of our universities, but we know in our K-12 system in Connecticut, Black and brown and poor children are going back less safe than our affluent, mostly white schools. We know that. And our policymakers and our governor and the Board of Ed has been quiet on that piece. But how about others? What's it like at Southern, Stephen? Have you been involved in the discussions? Have your faculty voices been respected? Do our faculty members feel safe?
Well, I think I would echo much of what Patty has said, that our considerations have not been entirely addressed. While our administration has been more flexible than some with the scheduling of classes and allowing us to choose our own modality, that is not universal. And so I think that it's one thing to suggest that this situation is exceptional, and therefore it requires an awful lot of uncertainty. There's an awful lot of uncertainty and so forth. But on the other hand, there are things that need to be prioritized, and safety, of course, needs to be prioritized, and our students' learning conditions. And let me say that as someone who has graduated from Southern Connecticut State University, I have a great concern for what's happening with our students. Our students, as you've suggested, and Patty alluded to, are students that are more economically disadvantaged. They hail from groups that are underrepresented in other universities, and we have larger proportions of students of color. And so, as someone who graduated from Southern, I have a great deal of concern regarding the treatment of our students as compared to some of these other universities, as Patty mentioned. That this is a social justice issue, and we need to put that at the forefront. Thank you.
So we're saying this is an issue of safety. Our faculty are concerned for their students, concerned for their peers and colleagues. I'm going to ask Louise Williams, what impact has this whole COVID summer and coming back to school pedagogically, in our pedagogy, that philosophy of teaching, what impact has it had on faculty and their pedagogy? Louise, can you help us out there?
Hi. Well, I think one of the problems we've had is that the Board of Regents Systems Office seems to want to control completely how we teach, and they don't understand in some cases that where we teach also has an impact on how we teach. So, for example, at Central, the administration decided that there would be sort of two options: online teaching and high flex teaching, where you have some students on ground and some students online. And we tried to make the argument that actually it's a pedagogical decision. It's not necessarily about the location, because some classes are much better taught online than they are in the HyFlex model. Not all the universities use the HyFlex model, but we asked the Board of Regents, can you give us the choice as faculty members pedagogically to decide whether the HyFlex model works or the online model works? And they said no. And then another issue we've been having is they've made this decision that we're not allowed to use Zoom. Well, Zoom is the best platform for teaching certain courses to students because it's a much more intimate experience. You can see all their faces, you can do group work, you can put them into breakout rooms, you can do polls, whereas the other platforms that we support can't do those things. They want us to use Collaborate, which you can only see 4 faces. So the students can't see each other and you can't see the students. I mean, we're trying to replicate what we really want, which is the normal on-ground experience. And in some cases, it's better on like Zoom platform rather than a HyFlex platform or their other platforms, and they just can't understand. So our point is that the faculty who are in the classrooms know best how to teach. Classes are different types of courses are different. We're the expert in our pedagogy, and we would like a little bit more support from the administration, or at least respect that we understand what we're doing. So it's just been very stressful because we're trying as best we can to serve the students. And again, I agree, it's a social justice issue. Some of our students are different. They don't do well with lectures. And in HyFlex classrooms, all you can do is lecture. So we just hope that we can serve our students well, and we're really trying hard. Everyone's trying really hard.
And I just would like to interject 2 things. With respect to this remote learning model that we've been using since March, and here at Western are using at least until September 12th because of the spike in cases in Danbury, there's an information technology divide that exists in our society. And some people have easy access to broadband and some people do not. And that's an issue that I think both the state and the system office need to address more adequately. All of us had the experience last spring where we lost students from our classes when we had to switch abruptly to online. They just disappeared. And I'm guessing they disappeared because they didn't have adequate access to the internet. And with respect to Zoom, students can access Zoom from their phones, and they can't access the other platforms from their phones. So for the system office to not allow the use of Zoom, I don't know that they understand they're creating additional barriers for all of us. And the last thing I want to say is, Louise, not everyone may be familiar with what HyFlex actually means. So do you want to explain that?
Sure. So in a HyFlex model being used at Central, there are a few students on ground, maximum about 12 in a 35-person classroom. Right now, we don't have that many signed up for the on-ground class, but then the class is live streamed to maybe 25, 35 other students who are watching it online. And apparently those students can type in text messages into a chat feature if they have questions, but they cannot talk, and they can't actually be seen in the classroom or communicate with the classroom. So basically what you have is a faculty member talking to 3 students. And they said specifically this model works as a way to push material out. In other words, if you lecture, it's fine because then the students sitting at home can hear your lecture live and then it's recorded, but it's not interactive. You can't have breakout rooms where you put different groups and do small group work. So the ones who are online really just have no communication. And there are some faculty who like to lecture and there's some faculty who like to demonstrate and they do a great job of it. So that's perfect for them. And we do have faculty who like that model, but then there are other faculty and different courses that prefer a more interactive model. So I hope that makes sense.
Right. And I would wonder that our university's insistence upon certain platforms is because we buy those platforms. If you're a faculty member using Zoom, which will allow students to speak and ask you questions, I don't know how to track the chat box. There's a chat box for the show right now, and I can't keep up with it. But if a student could speak and ask a question, then you can do that through Zoom. And yes, some of those the delivery models are more a transmission model, an antiquated. That's what I'm looking at. When they came to ask me about the flex classroom myself at Central, things that I was concerned with. One, they told me students could choose to be on it or out of it at any different time, any moment. And then when I got a look at the flex room and what it was offering, my classes are interactive, like Louise said. I ask people to engage in pair and share discussions, small group discussions. We read different articles and we respond to them and share them. So yes, Zoom was a better platform, and the university seems to, at the moment, be chasing that out. So some of the things for me is, what is our systems office buying? And I forget what the numbers are, but they are the place that has had the largest increase in budget as they've been seeking to consolidate. So that's one of those pieces along the way. But we should not just be thinking about how to deliver lectures or our courses. We should be thinking about the most engaging way we can do that. And I don't see how we can do that without engaging faculty and having pedagogical discussions about that. But I was wondering if we could go to Nicole and she could tell us a little bit about Weston. I know Patty's at Weston too, but she's like the state president. So Nicole, could you tell us what is it like in Danbury right now as we're reading about the spike in cases? And I think
you want to ask Ratua that question because I'm at Eastern.
Oh yeah, at Eastern. Okay. All right. So all right. So you're at Eastern. So Nicole, tell us about Eastern, and then I'll go down to our Western person. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. So Eastern looks a lot like our other campuses, except we have a higher percentage of courses with an on-ground offering. We have close to 60% of our courses are on ground at least some of the time. So in some courses, people have chosen to have, say, if the class meets 2 days a week, 1 day a week is online, 1 day a week is on ground. Some people, all of their courses are on ground. So for instance, I have a class today at 4 o'clock. It's a 1 day a week class, meets 4 to 6:45. We're just meeting the entire time in a room together. And some people are entirely online. So there's a lot of variation in what that looks like at Eastern. I think the connectivity issue that Patty raises is really crucial. One of my deep concerns for our students is that students who we lost in the spring who went home and didn't have adequate equipment, didn't have adequate connectivity, or didn't have adequate space in their homes to work, are going to get kicked off campus summarily, brought on because they needed the dorm money, and then kicked off campus when COVID gets bad, and they're just gonna get lost again. And there's no plan that I know of for these students, and I'm deeply concerned about that.
So it's interesting. We'll go to Ratua next, but just before we do that, there's a bilingual teacher in Wyndham Schools, Rose Riaz, who's been at quite a few state rallies questioning the reopening of schools and speaking out against that. And Rose is also, I think she's on the town council in Wyndham. And but she said early on to me at the beginning of the summer, she said, I bet you they're going to put the economy over our safety. They're going to put the economy before the safety of teachers and children and families and communities. So I think there's that connection. But Ratua, could you tell us about you're the hot part of the state right now. Danbury is reporting spikes. I think the Danbury K-12 schools are going to start remotely for the next 2 weeks. Can you tell us about what's going on in your neck of the woods and the spikes?
Yes, Jesse. So about almost 2 weeks ago now. There was a spike here in Danbury, a spike of COVID cases, and that definitely spooked the campus administration at Western, rightly so. And I think it's because the numbers in the 2 weeks before that were increased by more than 4 times compared to the number of cases 2 weeks 2 weeks before that. Which means that I don't know for sure what caused it. There are several explanations. I think that the administration offered, and the mayor of Danbury offered, and also the State Department of Public Health. But the bottom line is it's not safe. And all these preparations during summer to basically try to have some on-campus presence, because somehow the system office thought that these students should have college experience. I mean, we all know that you can't have a college experience when you have to be 6 feet apart from each other, right? And everybody's wearing masks. That's just not college experience that we know in normal times. And that comes down to, as you said, Jesse, to the economics of it, right? So we basically, the state decided that we need the CSUs need revenues from tuition revenues and dorm revenues, and also the economic activity that is caused by all the students being here, going to school here. And the thing is, for Western, we're kind of unique because we have a pretty significant percentage of our students are commuter students. So but we do have many students who live in the dorms, and all these, of course, so we went completely online for the first 3 weeks. And of course, the K-12 system, I understand, did the same thing for the first few weeks of this fall semester. But that, to me, again, that shows the insensitivity or tone deafness of the system office and the state government, I would say in general, that they care more about the finances, not about students. And the fact, as Patty earlier said, and Zach also said, that the fact that we have many of our students of color here across the 4 CSU campuses, that to me shows the disparate treatment compared to those students at UConn and definitely private universities. I just noticed actually a couple of weeks ago, I found out that all this the money from CARES Act that went to help universities, colleges and universities. In fact, schools like Yale actually got some money, and I'm sure they don't need that. But I mean, we need more of that. We need help. Our students need help. So I don't understand how these rich elite universities were raking it in when they were already raking it in from their own students who paid full tuition price.
Yeah, it's the same is true in our K-12 system. So charter schools, which run as businesses, got those loans and got that money. But public schools, regular public schools in our communities were ineligible to get that money. And charter schools often call themselves public schools. But when it came time to applying for CARES money or for the PPE grants, and it's somewhere around $2 billion was given to our charter schools, and none of that was given to our public schools. But let's bring in Stephen, because Stephen, you're our social justice advocate, and tell us about funding in higher ed. What is it like? Or is it fair? Is it just? Help us out, Stephen.
Well, I think Ratua was touching on this, and I think Patty has alluded to this as well. We have a crisis in public higher education that directly results from 40 years of defunding higher education and other social goods at the federal level and correspondingly at state level. Just in the last 10 years, Connecticut has cut funding to public universities by 21%, which resulted in a 37% increase in tuition, not to mention the added costs of room and board, student fees, books and supplies, childcare, and transportation. This is outrageous. And as someone who graduated from Southern Connecticut State University, as I mentioned before, it is something that I know from personal experience that is entirely preventable if states and the federal government make the investments that are necessary in public higher education. When I went to Southern, we paid $500 a semester. I talk about also my wife's mother, who went to Southern in the 1950s, who paid $50 a semester to go to Southern. It was then New Haven State Teachers College. My students pay something like $5,000 or $6,000 a semester altogether. This is outrageous. It is preventable with policy regimes that intentionally invest in public higher education. I would also add, in my opinion, that it is directly related to the some of the demographic shifts in the composition of our student population. When I went in the 80s, the population was largely working class white people. Today, we have a much more diverse student population, and these disinvestments have been going on for 40 years and are accelerating. We need to do something about this.
And we might understand that with every tuition increase, has come because of a disinvestment from the state and our universities. And every time we do that, we increase the loan debt. We drain family resources. We make it harder for our first generation, our poor, our students who are struggling to come to our universities and afford. And someone said it's $7,000 per semester. And then we double that. So you got 14 to 15,000. Then you start adding the room and board, and then you're talking $25,000 a year. And now we understand how students could leave our universities with $100,000 in student loans. But I wanted to give us an example of what real investment would look like. And then I'm going to shift from the COVID to what we should be doing in our universities. There's a reason Silicon Valley ended up in California. California had the number one K-12 education system in the nation. It's now somewhere in the 40s because they did that at this investment, but they also had free college. And so that tech industry saw themselves moving to California. They saw great school systems, and they saw universities that if they had 5 children, 6 children, they could all go free in that concept. And that idea. So I want to ask the next question, take us sort of down the road for people. What would an investment in higher education in Connecticut look like that sent the signal to Wall Street, every CEO, every tech company in the nation, that we are a hub of education access and opportunity? So why don't we throw that out there? Louise, take it. You can do it.
Well, Nicole had her hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Nicole. I didn't see the hand up. I'm watching now.
So I think that one of the things that Connecticut could do if it wants to demonstrate real investment in higher ed is do two things. One would be to restore cuts to our real budget so that tuition could come down for everybody. But the other thing it could do is it could take the model from some more progressive states out there, which makes free college available to people who come from families of middle class and lower means. That, so if you look at New York State, if a family makes less than $150,000 a year, they get free tuition at the state universities. And don't make the universities tack on giant fees to pay for it, thus increasing the spending, but making real college available. Connecticut's not a very big state. There's a state university in every corner of the state. Everybody could go for free if they didn't need to live in the dorms. And that was originally why these colleges were created. And we could do more to make college accessible to our young people. But really what Connecticut needs to do is it needs to not just invest in higher ed, but like you keep raising, invest in K-12 as well, and invest in real desegregation plans to make sure that everybody's getting a more common experience in schools. That's one of the things that California did and then walked back. And just from a policy perspective, if you wanted to attract more people into the state, you'd have to do some of those things.
So we would definitely have to have a reimagining, reinvestment. It's when we start talking about, I can't remember exactly the number, but somewhere it's 85% of our graduates are staying in state. They're adding, someone gave a number at one of our meetings that it's something like $850 million every single year they're adding to the economy year after year to our state. So it does pay for itself. It does, in that kind of stuff. But also, I'm thinking that there's a reason I'm an AAUP member. There's a reason that I'm a union member. So I want us to talk about, I know we need to invest, that our state needs to be invested, but why should we be members of a union? And I would venture to say, with the leaders in this room right now, you have been more active. I've been at my university for 20 years. This is a leadership that is very active, union-wise, social justice-wise. Let's give potential faculty members reasons why they should be union. I'm union strong. So who wants to take that one on?
I'm going to suggest that Louise take it on, but I would just like to add one more thing to the reinvestment discussion. It's not just reinvestment in higher education, public higher education, or public K through 12 education that we need to accomplish. It is a reconsideration of the entire tax policy in the state of Connecticut that is painful for middle and lower class individuals, and it clearly benefits the very wealthy in our state. We have to change that. We have to make it more progressive. And take it away, Louise.
Well, I would just sort of connect the two things, because people do know that getting a higher ed degree is sort of the ticket to a better life, to a middle class. People with higher ed degrees make considerably more money, they pay more taxes, they use less social services. It is economically a benefit to the state, but the same is true about unions as well. It's only with unions that workers have the kind of quality jobs, they have good salaries, and this in turn contributes to the state. Because with our good salaries, with our health insurance, we're not going to the emergency room and getting all of our health care through the emergency room that we can't pay for. We can take care of ourselves. We can be healthy. We can have, good lives and be good citizens and pay a lot of taxes, because union jobs do pay better. They do have better benefits. Everybody knows that. And also getting back to what Zach was talking about it being an equity issue. They do know that it is sort of public sector unions where most minorities get the best jobs. Union jobs help, underserved communities. They help, communities of people with the opportunities that, African Americans who are union members do considerably better economically than those who are not. So it is sort of a social justice issue as well. Unions do help all communities. So I would say to faculty that being part of our union has, definitely made it easier for us to teach our students. And that's what AAUP really is about. We protect academic freedom, and we have tenure not just to help us as faculty members, but because academic freedom ensures that our students are getting a quality education, because we can say the latest theories, we can discuss, the latest science without, worrying about politics. And tenure gives us the ability to really teach them the best way possible. So our union is about our students and about quality education. So I'll stop there.
Sure. No, it's all good. And it's one of the histories of tenure comes out of the New York City public schools. And the reason for tenure in the early days was, one, to protect women on the jobs from male supervisors and administrators who were harassing and treating them poorly. I mean, that was one reason for tenure, but it wasn't a buy-in in the New York City public schools, because without tenure, what happened is teachers could go anywhere to the highest bidder. So New York City, the boroughs of New York City, before New York City, where you can't afford to live in Harlem, you can't afford to live in the Bronx now, you can't afford to live in Brooklyn and Queens, or at least my daughter's rent is something like, for a studio apartment, I think it's like $1,900 a month, more than my mortgage. But what happened in New York is the teachers had no loyalty, and they kept leaving, and there was no consistency. So that was another reason for tenure. Gave you consistency. Another reason protects people from being discriminated against, harassed. There's so many things I couldn't imagine being without it. And it's also something, it's not something that just happens easy. You have to fight a battle to get tenure. You have to prove that you can get tenure. You have to go out of your way to prove that you're promoted. And even now, after I'm promoted to professor, I've already tenured, I have to put my professional review portfolio together. That comes, I'm already thinking about it because it's up next year, and they keep upping the ante. So tenure is just not something they just throw on someone. But that's what I want to get to a group of people at our universities, union members, our union members, who do outstanding work, who contribute significantly to our work, adjunct faculty members. And I want to ask the union leadership, what can we do to help our adjunct faculty members? We know they are underpaid. And during this pandemic, I don't even know, are they insured? Do they get health insurance? Could you help us out? Come on, tell us what we need to be doing for our adjuncts. Well, I'm very proud to be a union brother to those adjunct faculty members.
I'll just say a few things, and Zach has hand up, so I think he probably wants to speak. I think there are two things that we need to do. One is we need to pay them equitably. And the second major thing that we need is to provide some sort of health insurance that they can access that's affordable. some of our colleagues are working at 5 different institutions just to make enough money to survive. That's no way to live. So, the 2 major things are equitable pay and access to health insurance. And Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I want to chime in on 2 things: the part-time faculty issue, and then also this this issue of the importance of labor unions, because I think they're related. Again, all of this that's been going on over the last 40 years, this trend to austerity policies, cutbacks in public services, et cetera, and the trend in academia towards the greater use of part-time faculty are all interrelated to the decline in union density, that is to say, the percentage of the population that is unionized in our society. And that has steadily declined over the last 40 years or so. And along with that, you have seen massive increases in economic inequality, a shifting of the tax burden away from the very wealthy onto those of lower and middle income, and these ill-advised disinvestments in a variety of important public services, including higher education. All of this is interrelated, and it comes from a philosophy that one of the theorists that I teach in my classes talks about, and he describes it as yo-yo economics. You're on your own. Some folks also term it neoliberalism. But it is a destructive philosophy that is essentially the opposite of the philosophy of the labor movement, which is a social and economic justice-based philosophy. And I think that's what we here in AUP stand for and advocate, as others have said. Thank you.
We're all in this together in that sense, our adjuncts, our faculty. I think Patty has made a passionate case that our students are in this. It's like our environment. You have to take care of the air. You have to take care of the water. You have to take care of the food. We're interrelated. There's intersections in this. So the health of our adjunct faculty, bringing them healthcare and higher pay, that idea of working at 5 universities to somehow make our end, or is just stuff. And there's a reason we want so many adjuncts. It's so that we don't hire the full-time faculty, and it's all about keeping the cost down. And the cost is that piece that I think about. It is, if I put the economy of the course before the quality of the education I'm offering, then I have done an injustice to those that I'm selling my products to. But now we want to think about, we've got this higher investment. Our students are different. At our campus, we have a food pantry. We have students who maybe coming to campus might be one of the safest places. So our counselors at Central told us when the university quickly ended that we had some students who returned home to unsafe conditions. So I understand that COVID has us thinking about how safe we can be, but how also are we as faculty members and as a higher ed community, how are we taking care of all of our students that come to campus, not just the ones who have the tools, the money, the parental supports. How do we take care of our most needy students who may not, as Patty said, or Louise said, who didn't have access to high Wi-Fi in their homes, who may not have access to food? I've had students who have lived in their cars. So when I'm thinking about this challenge of the university, how do we invest in our university in a way that takes care of all of our students? And that's a big question. So help me out, people. All right, maybe we'll throw it to Nicole or Ratur. You two have spoken well on these topics today.
So I think we need to, in addition to doing more with tuition help, do more to make college accessible in other ways, right? That part of getting tuition help should be bringing students the technology they need, not just making it available to a room on campus, because as we saw during the pandemic, that meant that students didn't have access, and many of them, while many of our universities did provide them with technology, it took them weeks to get it. So then those students were weeks behind when they finally got what they needed. So we have to think about all the things the students need, including books. You know, personally, I try to keep my book offerings at a minimum and do more with offering free access to things that doesn't violate copyright. But sometimes there is a book you just really need to assign. Well, if that book costs $50, that might be out of the range of a student to purchase, and yet they need it to succeed in the class. So what do we do about that, right? We have to think about all of the costs of college for these students, all of the pressures that their families may put on them to have additional jobs or to be home to take care of younger siblings or whatever it is that they have to do. And we're not thinking about the whole student. We're thinking about very minute things. And then when they fail out, it's like, oh, that kid didn't have the drive. Well, really? Very often to me, it's not about the student's drive. It's about the student's ability to function in an environment where students who come from more privileged backgrounds just don't have the same number of challenges.
Obviously, and as we start to wind down today, I want to remind us that investment in—
Excuse me, Jesse. Can I just—
Go ahead, Natura.
Can I just say one last thing?
Yes, you can.
So this is really about, this goes back to what we said earlier, right? In reinvesting in our public higher education and K through 12 system. And that's, I thought, you know, during these extreme times with the pandemic, isn't that what the $2.8 billion of state rainy day funds are for? Governor Lamont said that he doesn't want to use it because we might have a bigger deficit next year. But if we don't use it now, the economy will keep hemorrhaging. So we have to stop it. We have to support our students. We have to support Connecticut residents using that funds.
So we already have the surplus. We already have the rainy day fund. Every time they tell us that there's going to be a deficit, and then all of a sudden when the numbers are finally counted, the dollars are put in the bank, we find out, whoa, we had more money than we thought. And then we're going to put it in the rainy day fund. And the rainy day fund is going to be a fund we're never going to use to invest in our public schools or our public universities. And I wanted to end on a note, because some people may call you socialists. And I'll say that the land grant institutions were established, given money by using government land to raise investments, to open up and invest in colleges and universities and faculty. We can renew those land grants. We don't have to raise a tax dollar. We've got billions of acres of land that we can use to help our universities and our students. God bless you, peace, and labor. We got to come back. I mean, we haven't even touched the surface of this. We got to get radical union. Yeah. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you to the presidents. Hey, I got to hang out with the president. That was pretty cool.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse.
All right, thank you.
From night to dawn, I right my wrongs alone. In competition with warnings, ice galore. Now I'm running toward